Welcome back. This is BPD Woman. We are talking about the topic of this part 2 of this video is I've been diagnosed with BPD. Now what? So, picking up from our last video, we ended with it's 2001. I have been experiencing cutting, violent outbursts, physical altercations. I've been dealing with drug and alcohol abuse. The police have been called on me multiple times. I was arrested. Now I found myself in a psych ward in late 2001. And I am sitting and I am talking one-on-one with someone who works on the psych ward who slips me a brochure. And the brochure says, what is BPD? And has a little person sitting like this. And it's bright orange. And she's like, have you ever heard of borderline personality disorder? And I was like, no, not really. And I'd never heard of personality disorders in general. I'd heard of depression and alcohol abuse, things like that. But, personality disorders to me, it really hadn't permeated, even though I'd been in a lot of therapy in my life. So, now what? Okay, BPD, now what? Now this is 2001, and DBT had been developed in 1993 by Marshall Linehan, although I didn't know what that was yet. So I was discharged from the hospital and I started to see a really nice social worker where I was living in South Carolina. And she was pretty helpful. I really liked her. And slowly, but she was not a, borderline specialist. There are a lot of great things that have happened in the last 20 years. 20 years ago, you couldn't find, first of all, I don't even think YouTube was a thing yet. But there weren't online forums for personality disorders. There wasn't a personality therapist specialist in every city. And if there was only one and they were booked all the time. There wasn't a ton of literature. There wasn't a ton of books. There wasn't Reddit. Stay off fucking Reddit. But, there wasn't for solid borderline information is what I mean. If you want to read about whatever, go for it. But I don't personally think that it has valuable information about disorders, personality disorders, most of the time. So I was getting some help, but the resources that are available today, now I have a DBT app. I've got 2 workbooks sitting out there. I've got 15 books. I've got wonderful, peer-reviewed, vetted websites I can check out for information. I can find experts and PhDs and doctors who treat these personality disorders as their profession. I can watch their YouTube channels. Aren't I lucky today? But back then, I didn't have any of that. The one thing I had was a book called I Hate You, Don't Leave Me. And it's about living with borderline. It talks about all of the criterion of borderline. It talks about how they look like. And that was helpful to me. Now, it helped to explain what was going on, but it didn't necessarily explain, in the edition that I had, it didn't really explain how to fix these issues. I moved up north with my boyfriend. We broke up, but I moved up north with him a few years later. And then in around 2003, I found a hospital that was operating a DBT class. And that was my first exposure to DBT. I didn't complete all of it, but I was surrounded by 3 or 4 other people that had it. It was a discounted group. And I was like, great, here are some actual tools. And then over the years, more information became available. And I really immersed myself in several rounds of DBT, true DBT. I read a lot of books. I talked to other people. I sought information. Sometimes I shared the diagnosis. Sometimes I didn't share the diagnosis. And so that's my story on my brief-ish story on being diagnosed. Okay, so you've been diagnosed. Now what do? What are you feeling? Well, you're probably feeling a lot of things. First of all, you're feeling fear because, it's this diagnosis and it feels foreign to you. It has a kind of a scary name. So you are fearful, perhaps. You may be anxious that the people in your life are going to leave you. You may be feeling hopelessness, like, oh God, now I'm never going to get over this, You may be feeling relief. Okay, great. Now we have a name for something that's been going on in my life and now I can solve it. It's a lot of emotions that are going on. And so I think the first thing to do when you have this diagnosis is don't read a lot of information. Read a selected amount of information that either your doctor or your therapist gives to you. You don't want to overwhelm yourself with too much information, some of it which may be inaccurate. In this point, you may not know what good information looks like on the topic and what it doesn't. So you don't want to be consuming things that may feed into your sense of shame or fear. And I can tell you, if you want to find information that shames or fears you, go to online forums. They're pretty rife with a lot of negativity and a lot of misinformation, and they're just simply not helpful. They're trolls. That's all they are. So find a limited good source of information. I'm going to do a separate video called Resources That I Recommend. And I'm going to look at, what to look for, what is a good DBT group, etc., things like that. Okay. So, consume information, but consume it limitedly. Check with your doctor. Check with your doctor, don't go down a rabbit hole. The second thing I would say is find yourself a DBT class and do that pretty much as soon as you can, because there can be a really long wait list for a DBT group. It could, I have waited as little as 2 months. I've waited as long as 6-7 months to get into a group. And the reason for that is because DBT, or what we call dialectical behavior therapy, dialectical meaning the ability to see both sides of a situation, they run the entire group runs 24 weeks, and they only let about, a good DBT group should not let more than 10 people into that group at a time. So, you can see it's a small group with a long group run time, so you can be on a wait list. So find one. Be prepared that it's expensive. So if you don't have all the financial resources to support that, ask about a payment plan, ask about discounted courses. You can even look to your local colleges. They have PhD candidates, and some of them run DBT classes at a super reduced rate. Again, you may have to wait longer, but it is an alternative. Find yourself some helpful workbooks and books, and I'm going to name a few. One is by Dr. Daniel Fox. In fact, I recommend everything by Dr. Daniel Fox. He has a YouTube channel. Just type it in, Dr. Daniel Fox, BPD. It'll pop right up. He is a licensed psychologist and PhD in the state of Texas, and he produces all kinds of helpful information on BPD as well as other personality disorders. He has a workbook, the BPD workbook. I have it. I recommend it. He also has a number of other books. I do recommend I Hate You, Don't Leave Me. I recommend a book called Stop Walking on Eggshells by Randy Krieger, and a book that is helpful for your partner, your spouse, your family, your friends, anyone that you want to share your diagnosis with and gain support. There's a book called Loving Someone with Borderline Personality Disorder by Sherry Manning. Now, that brings us to another point. Do you tell people and enlist help? Now you have this diagnosis. If you're feeling uneasy about it, you may feel uneasy sharing it with other people. So it's time to surround yourself with people who care and love you and support you and want to understand. If you don't have that, if you grew up in a family like I did, you were kind of short on that. So what do you do then? Find one person or two people. Find a group. Find a support group. Enlarge your support community. This is a time to weed the garden. If you have people that are your friends, but you only see them when you host parties, probably not really your friends. If there are people in your life who always want something from you, but don't give you something in return, these are probably not the people to seek support. If you are drinking, drugging, or consuming other things that alter your behavior, just know that even though I did that for the first 10 years of my diagnosis, it didn't help me. It hurt me. All alcohol and drugs do is further dysregulate you, and that's not a help to somebody who already has an emotionally dysregulation disorder. So find a support group and find people that are healthy and supportive to you. And if you don't have those, then you can find new ones. They don't have to be experts. All they need to know is that they support you and they don't judge you. You can start right there. Take it slow. You've been diagnosed with something, take it slow. This is going to be a journey, and it's going to take years, decades perhaps, to really change your behaviors, learn how to be more effective at changing your behaviors. So you're going to need patience. Don't judge yourself. Try to be kind to yourself. If you've slapped your boyfriend, if you've cut your arm, if you've crashed the car, try to forgive yourself, learn from it, and move on. Please try. Being kind to yourself can be difficult, but it's necessary, especially when many other people aren't. If you don't have health insurance, this is a time to look at getting it. The marketplace is opening up soon. If you don't have health insurance through any other means, if you're not insured through your spouse or your family or your parents or your workplace, ACA is opening November 1, tomorrow. Enroll. You're gonna probably need it. Now, most insurances don't cover rounds of DBT, but they can help with things like psychology appointments, possible hospitalizations, medicine. Find a good psychologist and try to find one that specializes in personality disorders to bond with and develop a professional relationship with, because you're going to need their expertise. If you can't find an expert in personality disorders, you need to find someone who at least has some exposure to personality disorders. It's great to find a therapist to talk to, but if they don't know anything about your disorder, then they can't help you sort through what's going on. And if they can't do that, then they're not much help to you in changing your behavior. But therapy is better than none. This time, we're in a lockdown. I still know that there are therapists doing virtual sessions. There's also BetterHealth. It's an app. You sign up for it and you can kind of, for $150 a month, you can get 1-hour long sessions, texting privileges with a therapist, and you can put in what you're struggling with, the kind of therapist you're looking for, if you want a female, male. So there are options out there. Consider making life choices that will help your recovery. If you're in a super high stressful job, consider trying to find something less stressful, or cut back on your hours if you can. If you're with people that aren't supportive, try to shift that to finding people who are supportive. If you are drinking and drugging and have poor sleep hygiene, consider making changes to benefit a more peaceful, holistic environment for yourself, your diet, So those are the steps, take your time, be kind to yourself. Get good, solid, informed, limited information to start with. find a good therapist, particularly an expert in borderline. And 5 is to sign up for a DBT class. You can find another video that I have on the channel called Should I Share My BP Diagnosis? Go ahead and check that out. And in the next video, I am going to produce a short video on resources that I recommend. I'm going to talk a little bit about what to look for in a DBT class, what kind of books I recommend, what websites I recommend, how to discern what's better information than others. I hope this has been helpful. Please like, share, subscribe, comment below, send me your questions. Much love. Thanks. Bye.